Welcome everybody to this episode of the Startup Show, again, Carpool series. Today I'm here in Bern with the head of innovation, Thomas Jakob. Welcome to the show.
Hey Cedric, thanks a lot.
Let's go for a ride.
Sure, absolutely.
Welcome back everybody to this episode of the Startup Show, again in a carpool. Thanks to Mazda, we got this car, thank you very much. And we're here in Bern today visiting PostFinance, one of the very big banks that offers services in the financial services. Big disclaimer, I'm a huge fan and a client for many years. My first account was with PostFinance, so I'm a little bit biased there.
Great.
No, I've been having a great experience. Tom, as usual on the Startup Show, you get about 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
So my name is Thomas Jakob. I'm an electrical engineer, which is, I think, kind of interesting for someone that works in a bank. But so I grew up as an electrical engineer. Then I worked at Swisscom for quite a while in the innovation area. Then I had the chance to move over to Silicon Valley for Swisscom. I ran the Swisscom outpost for a bunch of years. Then I took the chance within the United States to go at MIT. I did a degree right there and then came back. Then I decided to do something really different outside of innovation. I work for carpool, which is a local small company. Then I decided to do something like real, not just startup kind of thing. Yes. And I worked with carpool for Starbucks. I built a coffee plant in Malaysia, and then I came back into innovation because that's where my heart is and where I kind of lay it. Now I'm running the innovation department at PostFinance. Right.
Yeah. So before we go into that, I really want to hear a little bit your insights of the Silicon Valley. I mean, like this to get this chance to spend there 2 years. Just scouting for trends and startups. I mean, I would call that a dream job.
It is actually. It really is, and I actually fighted for it quite a bit because in the first round I didn't get accepted. Yeah. So I had to wait 2 years. I stalled everything for 2 years, and when the next chance sort of came up, I put everything
in one basket.
And I was like, I want to go, and I actually got the job. I was married at that time, and my wife just started her own company back then. So it was kind of a big decision because she had to leave all her customers back in Switzerland, and so we decided to go there. I think it's a once in a life chance to do such kind of a scouting job.
So tell me a little bit about what you saw in the Silicon Valley while you were there.
Yeah, well, back then I was there in 2006 up to 2009. The whole kind of iPhone movement, I would call it probably, which is probably not right, but sort of the whole iPhone thing started, right? When I came there was no iPhone. Yeah. Basically, when I left, everybody had an iPhone, and everything was about Apple. I stood up actually in the line for the first iPhone in front of Palo Alto's Apple shop just to get one of the first
phones. Next to Stevie?
Yeah, almost, right, yeah. But basically, I think that's what I kind of experienced when I was there, right? Before we were trying hard to sort of get some mobile experience on the phone. We did something that was called Friend Zone. Mm-hmm. We were even in the Blick news because everybody was so scared about you can find your friends on your cell phone. That's really bad kind of thing. And then when Apple came, the whole thing changed, right? Yeah. And so we went a lot further with TV experiences and all this kind of thing. Then also the whole cloud computing stuff came up. I think back then, except for Swisscom and probably BMW and some other companies, there was almost no one in Silicon Valley, right? Today, if you go there, there's all the big companies that
have an outpost.
They kind of have an outpost in some sort. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the change we saw, that innovation became sort of mainstream for all these big companies due to all the changes that happened in Silicon Valley.
Right. So let's go a little bit into the innovation. I would like to ask you about your definition of innovation, but let's first start to understand what PostFinance does, because you have this open innovation kind of style. So maybe you can give us a little bit of a background, explanation of what this is.
Absolutely. I think what we first did when I came was we had to define the space where innovation at PostFinance has to be, right? There's this strategy, you have thousands of people, hundreds of people that kind of think about the future anyway, right? And then you have this partnership with the ETH or something like that. And so we had to find our own space. Yeah. And we decided that the space we want to be in is sort of 3 to 5 years from where we stand right now. So that's a moving range all the time, right? The reason for that is that our strategy currently focuses on the next 3 years, but we sort of have to figure out a way to look beyond the next 3 years, because otherwise you'll always be surprised what comes up next, right?
Yeah.
Then we decided that innovation has to be something that is not only exploring what's out there, but something we need to be able to touch, right?
Yeah.
And so we just designed this whole innovation process with the gates. So basically, if you have an idea, you bring it into the process, you get resources up to 50K to build your prototype, to go out and test with customers. And then you get a chance to pitch this idea and the prototype to the CEO to actually really start a project or a prototype or a pilot or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So we got all this kind of decision, the governance and process on the road, and the money, right, which is very important. Then we learned next that people sort of got lost in this whole entrepreneurship process, right? They were very motivated in the beginning.
Yeah.
So they wanted to start, and then sort of like after 5-6 weeks, so they're kind of like, oh, okay, so much work. What do I need to do? Like all these kind of things that I need to do. Yeah. And then we decided to build the PostFinance lab. So where we take in these people, where we go with this entrepreneurs, sort of entrepreneurial talent, we take them in and we work with them, right?
Yeah.
And then the next kind of level was that we realized that we need to make ourselves open to not only internal ideas, but to startups, to everybody out there that kind of has an idea, right? So we opened the lab, we opened the process, and the last step we did was basically we opened a corporate venture capital
where you put money.
Yeah, where we can actually also fund companies.
Yes.
So this is kind of how we grew, right? And then I think from today's perspective, it makes a lot of sense. So we're just open to anybody that has an idea that's relevant to PostFinance. We finance them with some kind of bootstrap money. Then we have these guides where the CEO really can say, well, I like that. I want to put 2-3 millions into that thing, and then we can fund the company from there.
For sure. So before we continue, maybe give me a quick explanation what you understand under innovation, because, you know, also when I talk to other corporates and innovation, sometimes it's not obvious. So I can understand like a lot of fintech startups might be relevant to you, but maybe you can give us a little bit of a new angle to like what is or might be interesting, what type of innovation is interesting for PostFinance.
When I look at innovation, there's a lot of things we need to do at the very front end, right? Yeah. You need to be able to be open in a broader sense of what's out there. You need to be able to sort of connect with total different companies that you have no way of sort of see from the beginning why they make sense to talk to, right?
Yeah.
But this is all kind of just groundwork. Where I see innovation become to life is when there's actually a real product, a real differentiation in the offering we're kind of bringing to the market, right? I have done so many kind of great things that just some people came up, and when you put them out in the market, they just fail. Right? Yeah. No one waited for that. We did 100,000 of cool products, and it's just like out there, no one uses it. And so I decided for myself that innovation is really only successful when it's successful at the market.
Yes.
I know that's kind of a little different because a lot of people say, well, you need to just have the space and you need to experiment within this space. I sort of look at it just as the first aspect, right? If you can bring your product on the ground, it's just kind of useless, right?
Yes.
It's just like, what is it?
The market is the market.
Right? It's just nothing, right?
Well, and also today it's much easier to test the market than it used to be.
Absolutely.
I mean, like back in the days, you had to do market research, either phone calls, which is still a good way sometimes, but like today with Facebook ads and YouTube, it's so much easier to target exactly your target audience. And understand like what's flying out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably we'll look at PostFinance again a little bit. You have sort of a brand, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to destroy your brand with like all kind of weird experiments, right? Yeah. But then on the other hand, if you don't put in the brand, then kind of what's the value that PostFinance adds to this test
as
or this pilot as a corporate, right? And so there's a balance, right? We need to find for every single kind of experiment we do is like how much of PostFinance is there in that prototype or in that product or in that test, and where do we want to kind of leave PostFinance outside and try something completely different that has no direct relationship with PostFinance, right?
Are there like any, let's say, samples of use cases or startups that you say like, well, those are actually the relevant ones, especially let's say startups who are watching the video now and saying like, oh, maybe that would be relevant. What is it that like would say to you, yes, like I would like to talk further?
Yeah, of course. We kind of define those areas we're looking into over and over again, right? So we're calling them Suchfelder because we want to sort of make sure that we're looking into a whole kind of field and not just individual companies. So things we're looking at obviously is technology, right? So close to what we do at finance, we need to understand, is there a role for PostFinance to work in the tech field and sort of disrupt this field, right?
Yeah.
So we also look, obviously, it's kind of a no-brainer. We look at a lot of blockchain companies. We just need to totally understand what that technology does to the banking market, right? Not sure if it's obvious already, right?
Yeah.
Then another area we're looking at is all the financing, right? There's new ways of financing projects or personal credits or something like that. So we're heavily looking into this kind of market. There we have launched with Lendico, we have launched a company already in Switzerland where we're sort of tapping into the market and trying to understand how can we deliver credits to customers who want to get a credit online, right?
Yes.
Without just going to a bank. But there's a lot of these kind of areas we're looking into: regulation technology, legal technology. So we're kind of open to all the things that from a broader perspective make sense for PostFinance. Mm-hmm. And then I have 2-3 people, they are sort of allowed to go out, right? So they bring me, I don't know, like nutrition companies, they bring me, I don't know, like weird companies which you might not ever have heard of, and they tell me, well, we need to do something with that company. I'm like, okay. So let's try to structure these kind of ideas to this innovation process, and then we can manage it.
Mm-hmm. Like as you just said, you look at a lot of companies, a lot of startups all the time. Maybe you see certain trends, maybe a little focused on Switzerland. What are the startup trends that you see at the moment?
Trends is always a difficult word, right? It's just, I would say I see group or areas where I see a little bit more activities than on other sides, right? And I think it's in the area of the financing, crowd financing or crowd areas. I see a lot of companies. Then I think, as I said before, like blockchain is always something very big in Switzerland. And I think there we can even have a chance within the world to sort of become that sort of the leadership country for these kind of things, right? So I'd say like from that point of view, it's probably where I kind of see right now the
market going.
The market going, right?
Yes.
And then the rest is, I think, very fragmented at the moment, right? We have a little bit of artificial intelligence. We have kind of companies that try to launch some apps to do payments. But Swiss market is kind of very small for startups, right?
Right.
I think you have to look at it broader perspective.
So just to wrap up the show, I would like you to compare maybe a little bit of what you saw, let's say, in the Silicon Valley versus, let's say, the mentality ecosystem here in Switzerland. Maybe you have like a few thoughts you can share. Maybe not only just like what the differences are, but maybe where we as Switzerland can maybe improve. Yeah,
well, something that's, I think that's kind of well known by now, is that Silicon Valley sort of has this ecosystem between the universities and finances and the startups like the brain, right? I think we have come kind of an interesting way in Switzerland in that same area, right? In the last 2-3 years. Like 3 years ago, there was nothing about fintech in Switzerland, right? And when you look at it right now, there's a lot of efforts to sort of bring these entrepreneurs together, to have, for example, banks or insurances come together and have these discussion rounds. I see even the Swiss Bankiervereinigung that interacts with the startup ecosystem, right? So there's really this kind of...
The bankers in suit and ties.
Yeah, exactly. But it starts flowing, right? And that's what I kind of like. And then you have a lot of governmental support. I see the regulator now that comes in with this new fintech license. So I think we have learned a lot, right?
Yeah.
And kind of we need to sort of stand together and sort of, I hate the word, but kind of defend the Swiss market as a very, very interesting market in the financial area, and we should grow together, and from there take our stand in the world.
It's also our expertise, the expertise that we have in financing,
and we shouldn't let that go, right? Just because we had a financial crisis and these kind of things, right?
Sure.
It's we have a lot of great talent, great people here, so we should use that.
So you see like a good future of the Swiss startup ecosystem?
Well, I do. I actually do. Right. I really do. And I think there's a lot of money here we can sort of put into these efforts. And I hope that PostFinance and we can sort of contribute to that and make the ecosystem grow.
Tom, thank you very much for your time. We are going to cruise around here a little bit more. And thank you very much for your time and taking the time to do this carpool series here with me in Bern. Thank you very much for everyone who tuned in today, for your attention. I really appreciate it. And have a great day.
Sure. Thanks a lot.